Stephen is the London bureau chief for the New York Times. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's talk first of all about this false equivalency, somehow equating the alt-right with neo-Nazis, and the fact, of course, that now the White House and the president's aides are doubling down on this and again reiterating this claim that there are two sides to every story and that both sides are to blame. Your response?
Well, of course, there are two sides to every story, but both sides are not to blame. The alt-right exists. Steve Bannon is a big champion of the alt-right. The alt-left does not exist. It's an invention of Fox News. There is no such thing called the alt-left. There are people who protested against neo-Nazis and fascists, and they were the ones who tried to make this demonstration, who came very well equipped. Now, there were some people on the left who protested them and who also came equipped with body armor and didn't behave very well. But to put the two together and say, well, there's just blame on all sides and let's all be friends is absurd.
Yeah.
And it's harmful to the nation's values, I believe.
Well, this is one of the things that the president was talking about, saying that he was going after the facts. He saw all the videos from Friday night in Charlottesville, also from Saturday as well. He wanted to see all of the facts, and some of the facts were that there were some people on what he's called the alt-left, or on the counter demonstration, who were carrying bats and the like, and who were there to carry out some sort of violence against the alt-right as well. My question to you, though, is that this idea of the president going after the facts, since when? Since when has he been so bothered by the facts?
Well, you'll have to ask him that. I mean, I can't read into his head. We were talking about, it's a culture war going on. It's been going on for a long time. And Donald Trump believes that the left in America has been winning the culture war in its interpretation of history, in its interpretation of gender relationships, in its interpretation of who gets to do what in the society. And he represents not all of his voters, to be sure, but some of his voters feel threatened by all of this. And they see values and their history being trampled. Now, that is, I think, on the margins of American life, but it's real, and Trump is reflecting it. Now, you see it in the battle over the renaming of Calhoun College at Yale University, because Calhoun was a slaveholder. I mean, this is a real debate going on. This happened to be in the South. But it's fine to have a debate. It's another thing to drive a car into people trying to kill them because you hate what they stand for. Now, that's not moral equivalence. That's a form of domestic terrorism and murder, and it needs to be called out.
Why has the president taken this line now, 2 days after sort of rolling back on what he'd said from Saturday? He's gone back to this line. Is this just an expression of revealing who he actually is? This is a man of perhaps questionable moral integrity, or is there some kind of rationale? Is there a political rationale behind this, that somehow he is trying to reach a certain group of people who could potentially keep him in power and get him re-elected?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, Trump is Trump. This is what he does believe. He was pushed into changing his tune on Saturday by a White House staff that was very nervous about the reaction his first comments got, particularly from his own Republican Party. But when he got into this testy press opportunity last night, which wasn't supposed to be a press opportunity, Trump's real beliefs came out. I mean, he resents cutting his sails to fit politics, as his staff wanted him to do it. So what we saw was the real Donald Trump's real views on what happened.
And we have to also bring in the response that we got from congressional Republicans as well. Let me just read some of the tweets that we had from Congress. Republican Paul Ryan, of course, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, he took to Twitter to say, quote, "We must be clear, white supremacy is repulsive. This bigotry is counter to all this country stands for. There can be no moral ambiguity." Mitt Romney also took to Twitter to comment on Trump's latest comments. He said, quote, "No, not the same," i.e. no false equivalency. "One side is racist, bigoted Nazi. The other opposes racism and bigotry. Morally different universes." And then Senator John McCain, who, of course, Trump called out in that press conference for being the one who pulled the plug on his healthcare reforms, John McCain said there is no moral equivalency between racists and Americans standing up to defy hate and bigotry. The President of the United States should say so. Stephen, is this a turning point when you've got congressional Republicans turning on the President? Is this the start of something that we haven't seen before?
I think the strength of it is, yeah, because their own constituents don't really like this. They didn't like what happened, and they don't like what President Trump said. Now, I don't think it's a turning point. The turning point will come if it comes at all in the midterm elections, and if Republicans suffer, they will begin to think about the viability of this presidency. There's some people who sort of whisper about it. Some people wonder, whether Trump is sort of fit in a way to run a country like the United States, but he's duly elected. He was fairly elected. He is the president. I don't see impeachment coming. I think he's okay.
Stephen Erlanger, it's great to get your perspective. We appreciate it very much. Stephen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we were just